Not all condos are created equal, and buying the wrong one could cost you big time. Whether it's poor financials, bad management, or simply just a terrible layout, there are certain types of condos that you should never buy. Today, I'll walk you through the ones to avoid, and I'll share with you when it's worth making an exception, because like most things in life, there are often exceptions to the rules. Now, just before I get into it, if you're new here, my name's Andrew Stevens. I'm a realtor in Halifax. And if you're new here, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And if you're thinking about making a move in the Halifax real estate market, you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below. All right, first up, condos with poor financial situations. So this is first on the list for a reason. These are condos that you should always run away from. As part of a deal when you're buying a condo, during due diligence, you're going to get all of the financial statements. So you're going to get financial statements from the previous couple of years. You're going to get the most recent reserve fund study, and you're going to get a budget. And within that due diligence period, you're going to review all of this with your lawyer. And if there's red flags on here, then you should run away in the other direction. It's as simple as that. Condos with poor financial situations often result in special assessments, meaning major costs for you in the future, not to mention rising condo fees and lots of other issues within the condo corp. So these are situations that you want to avoid. Now, like I said, there's oftentimes exceptions to the rule. So the exception for this one is none. There is no exception to this rule. I think it's the only one on this list that has no exception to the rule because honestly, it's not a good investment. It's not a good idea. It doesn't matter how much you love the kitchen or the location. It is a bad decision to buy a condo that is in a poor financial situation. Period. End of story. Condos I would never buy. Number 2. Condo buildings with major improvements on the horizon. So things like the roof, windows, siding, maybe some brickwork, maybe the decks need to be redone, some things like this. The reason for this is these are all major capital improvements that are going to require serious money in some of these bigger, especially some of these older buildings in Halifax, for example. Now, the obvious reason for this is because it's expensive and it's going to affect the financial situation of the building. But an exception to this rule would be a building that has a very good financial situation, and you can see in the meeting minutes and you can see in the budget that they're accommodating all of these capital improvements that are on the horizon. But you still should be aware of these buildings because at the end of the day, they may run into major issues if they're redoing all the siding on a building, for example, or all the decks on a building, for example. And if they run into major issues, that might affect the budget and it might result in special assessments moving forward. Condos I would never buy. Number 3, buildings that allow Airbnb. So the reason for this is just the obvious. The Airbnbs can cause issues within the condo corp. And if you're purchasing a unit within a building and they allow Airbnb, do you really want to live as a homeowner if you're actually going to live in this condo? Do you really want to live in between 2 different Airbnbs where on any given Friday and Saturday night, there could be a group of friends in from Toronto or something like that that are here to party for the weekend and they're noisy, they're loud, they don't live there, so they don't really have the same vested interest in the building itself. It just causes a lot of issues within the condo corp. If you're purchasing a condo, I would recommend you probably are looking for a strong sense of community within that condo corporation. And the more owners that are living in that building, the better overall condo corp you're going to have. Now, like I said, there's always an exception to the rule. So this one would be if you're looking for an investment property that you can Airbnb. Obviously, that would be an exception to this rule. But I will say, just beware of this if you're looking for that. Airbnbs may be allowed in the building right now, but they could be on the way out. They could be getting voted out soon. And there's a lot of buildings in Halifax that used to allow Airbnb that don't anymore. So you should just be aware of that and check the meeting minutes. Are they talking about Airbnbs? Are they talking about potentially getting rid of them? Because if they are, maybe that's on the horizon and you might want to save yourself the headache by purchasing this as an investment property. Not to mention, if you're Airbnb a condo, it would have to be in a commercial zone based on the new Airbnb rules in HRM. So these units are probably more few and far between now than they once were, but it's just something to be aware of. Condos I would never buy. Number 4. Buildings that are poorly managed. So first of all, you can usually tell this right within the realm of a typical 20-minute showing in a condo corp. So if you're going through the building and you're seeing a lot of garbage all over the place and it's a mess and maybe the hallways are dirty and things like this, this is obvious that the building is not managed very well. And this is going to bug you the entire time that you live in this building. Not to mention, this is potentially going to affect your resale value as well. And it is usually indicative of the financial situation to the condo as well. So going with the first thing that I talked about. Now, the exception to this one is there is none. I don't really think anybody should want to live in a poorly managed condo building. Same idea as the financials. It just doesn't really make sense for a variety of reasons. Now, if you're looking at a building and you see everything as a mess, that's probably indicative of what it looks like most times. It's probably not just like a one-off week where it happens to be dirty or it happens to be a big mess in there. It's probably the way it is 90% of the time, if that's the way it is when you're looking to view the unit itself. Condos I would never buy, number 5. Buildings with a history of bedbug and cockroach issues. So in my experience, first of all, it's gross. Let's just call it what it is. Nobody wants to be living in a unit that has bedbugs or cockroaches if they can avoid it. And in my experience, this is not something that is easy to go away. It's not something easy to take care of. It's typically an ongoing problem as they go unit to unit and so on. So is there an exception to this rule? Maybe. I guess if it doesn't bug you, yeah. See what I did there? I guess if it doesn't bug you, it is what it is. But personally, I would be very wary about these buildings because at the end of the day, it is very likely to affect your resale value as well. So it might not be as good of an investment as another building that does not have these issues. Condos I would never buy, number 6. Wood frame construction building. So this one might be a little bit controversial. There's lots of wood frame construction condo buildings around the HRM as a general statement. Most of them are on the smaller side. Overall, they're just a little bit more problematic than concrete units. They're a little bit more noisy and they're not really as solid. Maybe they're not as durable. Maybe they're more prone to fires. There's a lot of reasons why I would avoid wood frame buildings personally, and maybe that's a bit of a controversial view. Is there an exception to this rule? Yes, of course. A lot of it comes down to price. So if you're looking on the Halifax Peninsula, for example, there's some buildings that are wood frame construction that are on the cheaper side, which are great for first-time home buyers, young professionals. They're still very sought-after buildings. They're still managed very well. So it's not like the be-all, end-all. I would never buy a wood frame construction building. There are definitely exceptions to that rule, but I would be a little bit weary about it, and I would definitely be talking to your realtor about the pros and cons of wood frame construction versus a concrete construction building. But of course, it comes down to your budget and your needs and your wants. Condos I would never buy, number 7. Bad floor plans. So what makes a bad floor plan? Well, a lot of it is subjective, but in general, if you're walking through a condo and it's, let's say, 800 square feet, and you're walking through it on a viewing and you're thinking to yourself, where in the heck are the 800 square feet in this condo? That's probably a good start. So oftentimes they have poor flow, they have maybe a lot of dead space, maybe too much hallway, just a bad overall layout. Again, a lot of it is subjective, or maybe based on where it is located in the building, it has a lack of privacy, or maybe it has a lack of natural light. There's all kinds of things like that. So is there an exception to this one? Yes, definitely with this one, there is a big exception, and that is if the price is an indicator of this bad layout. So most condo buildings, in my experience, do have some units with bad layouts, and it often just comes into they're trying to cram one more unit onto that floor or whatever it may be, just to get the unit count up for the developer. But overall, if the price is reflective of the bad layout, then that's fine. So in other words, if you have a building that's really, really popular and most of the units are selling for $550,000, but this unit is going to sell for maybe $485 or $490 or something like that, there's oftentimes going to be people that will pay less money for a bad unit just because it's in a good location in a good building and they want to get into that particular building. So there's always going to be buyers trying to get into, for example, it would be like somebody getting into a good neighborhood at the lowest possible price. They care more about the neighborhood than the plan itself. So that's just an example. There's definitely an exception to this one. For example, there's a lot of people that won't buy a unit next to an elevator. But if that unit's $20,000 or $30,000 less, then maybe they would look at that and they would give up the idea that they're going to hear the elevator from time to time. Just some simple things like that. This one does definitely have a big exception. Condos I would never buy, number 8. over-regulated condo corps. So most condo corps have a very similar set of bylaws or rules, for those who don't know what that is, that determine what you can and can't do in the building. However, in my experience, there are certain condo corps that are overkill on these rules, and that is something that you may want to avoid. Now, the exception to this rule is if you're somebody who is a big rule person and you want it to be overregulated, then that's one thing. But at the same time, I would highly caution the fact that it might affect your resale value. So, for example, if you can't have any pets in the building, that is significantly shrinking your buyer pool when you go to turn that unit around and sell it in the future. But if you're going to live there long term and you want an over-regulated building for one reason or another, personally, I wouldn't, but some people might, then maybe it's something you should look at. But just know you may be shrinking that buyer pool in the future, and it may affect the overall value of your investment when you go to turn it around and sell it in the future. So there you have it. There's the types of condos that I would never buy. And again, there's always exceptions to the rules. And if you're thinking about purchasing a condo in the HRM, you can reach out to me anytime to chat about it in the Calendly link below in the description, and you can book a buyer consult or a call directly with me. And if you'd like to know what my top 10 condos are in Halifax, you can check out the video on the screen right now. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future content. And until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.